We're gonna go with Brother Yusef Wiley next on the mic, and he is a brother who's come into the community over the last couple years and really done some transformative work, and we want him to talk about his story and what his vision is for the Muslim community in moving this work forward.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah bil alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing, a great opportunity to be here today with all of you, the community here. In fact, when I first came home, this was the first mosque that I came to for Fajr. So it's definitely a feeling of barakat and blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be here. And I feel that one of the things I want to first point out in regards to this, because again, today is also the day that we commemorate or acknowledge the martyrdom of Malcolm X or Malik al-Haj Shabazz. Conversion in the prison system. I wanted to speak specifically to that because myself, being a convert to Islam, I think it's important that we understand that most of the people that you see, especially and particularly African-American brothers that are going inside the prison system or the jails are converting to Islam right there. A lot of times when they were here, they were not Muslim, just like myself. So prior to me going into the prison system, I was not a Muslim. I was a gang member. So a lot of the things that are said here is very, I mean, this is all new to me. So just like myself, other individuals that were out in society and living that lifestyle in the streets, and myself not being originally from the Bay Area, being from Los Angeles, you know, it was some stuff going on out there in the 80s. And during that period of time, the law enforcement has some serious conspiracies going on to really end our lives out there. And in fact, they would ride around in our neighborhoods, the sheriff, the LA County Sheriff's Department, with red and blue bandanas in their trunk. In some cases, they would drop us off in enemy territories, you know, and things like that. They used to get plane cars and do drive-bys. They was doing drive-bys, and they would do things to inflame the gang rivalries that was taking place in South Central Los Angeles. That's some of the unreported, untold stories that a lot of people don't know about, because when a lot of the, you know, the killings that was taking place with law enforcement killing young African-American kids in the street, we started getting united. You know, a lot of the gangs, a lot of that stuff started phasing out as far as the real violence that came later was starting to decrease. But when they seen that begin to happen, and they seen a lot of the Crips and the Bloods, we was having all type of unity, you know, picnics, we was doing different things to try to come together. Right after that started happening, there was an increase in drive-by shootings, and a lot of that was coming from law enforcement themselves. And a lot of people are unaware of that. And during that same period of time is when the AK-47 was actually brought to the streets. You know, we had direct access to AK-47s in the neighborhood, and they were selling them right there in the community. In one case, I believe they had left a van parked with, you know, guns, and just for us to just vandalize and get the guns. I mean, there was a lot of stories like that. So a lot of these things that brought us to this place, it began with a lot of these conspiracies that was taking place in the community. My own story, going to prison and spending 22 years in prison, the first few years, you know, was a difficult struggle. And many of us African Americans that was there, we had no hope of getting out of prison. You know, some of the brothers that I see here today, familiar faces, I tell you, just 10 years ago, we was like, we're not getting out of prison. Right? We're not getting out of prison. That was our thinking. But when Islam, for myself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened my eyes, and not from any da'wah. Nobody was, you know, I wasn't getting letters from masajids or people writing to me, communicating with me about Islam. I actually was in solitary confinement, and for assault on a prison guard. And during that time, I just was reading the World Almanac and seeing Islam in the World Almanac amongst other topics, and Allah, the light was turned on. So from that point forward, so many Muslims were becoming, so many people were converting to Islam, especially African Americans, that even prison officials began to get nervous, and we were surveilled in prison. They was always like, these are guys that was ex-gang members and thugs. They was worried. And because one of the things that Islam brought to so many of us inside was structure. We had structure. So, at some instances, they would look at us and like, when they had problems in the prison, they would come to the Muslims. How are we going to deal with this problem that we having amongst the racial riots and the tension that's going on? They would come to the Muslims. So Islam, had such an impact on so many of us, the African American brothers inside. And so that structure that developed, and my point is, I'm getting to a point, is once we return home, we still looking for that structure. So many of us get out and we look to see the brotherhood. We look to see the Ikhwan. We looking for each other. We calling each other like, many of us that are here, like I said, we look for that same structure. We look for institutions. We look for things or structures that's going to support us. Institutions, communities, and so forth. So a lot of times, brothers have gotten out and returned, come back, made mistakes. Oftentimes, when we would see them come back, because we was there a very long time, we would see brothers come home, get out, and they would come back, and we asked them what happened, and they just, they didn't feel the support. Not to say that that's an excuse, but they got out looking for that structure. And so many of us have said that, like, man, we're going to get out, we're going to have this brotherhood. We totally lost. We don't know how it's going to be. We've never been Muslims on the street. So we automatically expect that structure when we get out. So you got soldiers coming home. Literally, if brothers getting out, they already in that mindset of discipline, structure, following rules and guidelines, and they get out and they see none. They like, you got to find your own way pretty much, brother, go over here and, just pretty much make your way. So that's a struggle for a lot of people, getting out and having that situation. It's almost easier for them to be inside, to be in prison, So one of the things that I wanted to say is for myself, me and the brothers that are here today, some of us, we decided ourselves, after so many years, we came together and said, we need to come up with some kind of programs that's going to support us. And that's how we formed the organizations that we have on the Table Foundation, as well as the Timelist Group. When the Table Foundation, which is a 501c3 that supports Muslim distance learning education, allow Muslims to have a link to the outside where they can learn the deen from scholars coming from the imams out here and back inside, because that was one of the issues of disconnect with the community and not really learning the true Islam, because brothers real susceptible to being influenced by deviant views and ideas that would come into the prisons and so forth. So that was a strong link. But then the Timeless Group served the purpose of supporting brothers once they get home, because oftentimes brothers get home. We have situations where, because they became Muslim, their family's like, you ain't coming in here talking about we ain't eating no pork and praying, and we've really had problems with brothers going back to their homes. So oftentimes they choose to go to the Muslim community. They expect that the Muslim community would embrace them when they get home. So alhamdulillah, we've been embraced here, and that's a big start, and that helps so many of the brothers that are here now today in this community, because unlike other communities, sometimes we come here and we expect a whole lot. So the Timeless Group, our goal, one of our goals is to educate the Muslim community so that they can become more aware of how they can support brothers that are coming home. The tools and like Tamisha had mentioned about the education or jobs, employment being the first thing that is a need when somebody comes home. They don't want to be looked at and say, you know, where you come from prison, or we don't know if we can hire you, and things like that. Those are great concerns. So, inshallah, I hope that with this function and gathering today that we can come up with some solutions. There's much more I can say here. I don't want to spend a lot of time speaking on my own story, but I just want to say that, you know, with the Timelist Group, with Tabor Foundation and other similar organizations that are going inside the institutions, and one of the biggest things I do want to say, though, is, and particularly for the Muslims, is that they need to see the Muslims coming inside as well, coming to visit them, you know, make that connection. Because one of the things that we realize and notice from the other organizations, the Christian and the Catholic organizations, that they would actually come in and meet with the Christians or the Catholic, even Muslims that didn't have places to go and resources, transitional housing. They would actually come in. They didn't care who you were, and they would interview them, pretty much go through a screening process to see what kind of needs they're going to need once they get home, whether it's education, jobs, employment, where they're going to be living, and so forth. That way they're already familiar with this particular person's needs, and when they come outside, they pretty much welcome them and bringing them into the community, you know, so they've already made contact with them before they come home. You know, I think that particular model that they use has been very effective, and they have like close to, 15 transitional houses in Southern California, probably more than that. And many of our own brothers right now, Muslim brothers that were struggling with us inside the prison, are in those programs right now, you know, because the Muslims are not, you know, providing those resources. So, inshallah, I'll leave you with that, and inshallah, we can accomplish some of these things in the future. Assalamu alaikum.
And that's really one of the reasons why we came here tonight, is that this conversation has to take place throughout the country. We know tonight they're also showing this film in Chicago, the Mustafa Davis directed Prison Blues, right? We have to raise this issue of, one statistic says there's 350,000 Muslims in prisons in the United States. That would be more Muslims in prisons than live in the Bay Area, roughly, right? But and there's a film about Yusuf called The Forgotten Believers. And I think that that's really how we have to think of this, is that it's our responsibility, beyond even advocating for brothers coming home, is also to not let those brothers that are living inside the prisons right now be forgotten anymore. So with that, we wanted to bring the brother Tahir Prather to the mic. He's also a recently returned citizen who's been working as a co-founder of the Timelist Group for the last couple of years, and we'll let him tell you more about his story.
Assalamu alaikum. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's truly a blessing. I also want to thank Imam Zaid for this here place, and Sendiata for the lighthouse. Upon me coming home also, this place was here in one of the first masjids I came to. And what I really love about it is that it don't have a key on the door. I went to plenty of masjids besides this one, and you can't get in. Allah Ta'ala bless the Muslims to be able to come in here and pray whenever you want to. So thank you, brother, from the bottom of my heart, really. A little bit about myself. Like the brother say, I'm Tahir. I spent 28 years in prison, you know, for things that was very unbecoming of me. I was doing things in society that society totally unaccept. And I'm going to be honest and say that the system had to remove me from society because of the things that I was doing. I'm truly thankful today to be a believer because, like Yusuf said, you know, I found Islam inside of the prison. But the first 10 years of my life, it was all about me trying to survive inside of prison, because there was a lot going on where I was at to where it was about survival. You know, and I'm talking about you had to learn how to survive, or you could have lost your life in that point in time. So I had to learn survival first, and by Allah I was blessed to do so. At that time, I didn't know that it was by Allah, but He got me through a lot of situations that I didn't think I would have got out of. And also, I started studying. I started helping other brothers studying to get their GED. I started taking trades, you know, and none of that came about until I left, you know, the prison where I was at, where a lot of violence was going on. Once I left there, it was time for me to start trying to work on myself, and I began to do so. Like I said, I started tutoring other brothers to try to help them also work on their self, to understand that change had to take place within us. I never thought I was going to get out of prison because when I went in there, I was doing a lot of things that was unbecoming still because that's the state of mind I was in. That's where my heart was at. But when Allah Ta'ala brought Islam into my life and I became a believer, things changed, and I changed wholeheartedly for that reason that this was positive and that was totally negative. I thought it was positive because I believed in it wholeheartedly when I was doing it. As a gang member, could nobody tell me it was wrong? I believed it. I'm talking about I believed it, I lived it. And like Yusuf said, you know, there was a lot going on in our communities where we accepted it for what it was worth. We was together today when we left Juma, we seen a shrine right here on the street over here. And I was like, man, they got a lot of them around here in Oakland. But I was like, in LA, if you seen them shrines, they'd be all up and down every block though, if people had them, because there's so many deaths happen on them streets. I'm talking about lives was taken, still being taken here and out there. But in the process of us, you know, coming up with Timelist Inside, it was for the sake of trying to save lives also. And we was blessed to be able to do so. We got a program that the system inside accepted to allow us to try to help brothers, you know, get out or change their lives. So when they do come back out here into society, they're able to come out and function. We took our program serious. When brothers got in it, they had to get in it for what? For the sake of trying to change who they was. You know, so they could come out here and be a better father, a better husband, a better brother, a better son to their moms or whoever. And to this day, it's working. That's what we out here doing now as service providers, you know, rehabilitation coordinators. That's what I do. I try to help, you know, individuals, juveniles right now, as well as young men coming back out of the walls, you know, to come out and establish themselves into society and to be somebody other than who they was when they went in. But it's very important to have some type of support system. I was blessed to have the Muslims pick me up from prison, bring me, you understand me, to, you know, Northern California, because I'm from Los Angeles, to bring me to Northern California and establish me to where I come over here to this lighthouse and brothers embrace me. There's brothers in here today I can look at that's still here that embrace me like they did when I first came home, and it's truly a blessing. It's something that I don't take for granted because there's a lot of brothers, like you say, they don't get that welcoming. But by me studying like I was also inside, he's my teacher, as well as, you know, one of my, I could say a mentor, and I'm a mentor he is because we help each other. It's not a day go by that I can say that if I need something, I can't call on him, as well as brothers in this community, I could call on them. So we have to be mindful that, look, Allah Ta'ala has put man here to serve his man, so we must be able to call on each other. You know, call on your brother when you're in need. Don't be ashamed. Don't be feeling like, you know, as your ego, you got to do things by yourself. Call on your brother, you know, and be willing, you know, to help the youngsters in the community because there's so many of them need help. Muslims, non-Muslims, I'm talking about help, man. If you see a brother need help, help him. You know, Dustin was talking about his family, you know, him being one of the few that, you know, broke that cycle. That's truly a blessing. And we have to try to, you know, help those that haven't broken the cycle to break it. I grew up without a father, so I like, you know, I want to break the cycle of my son coming up without a father, but I made the mistake and I got caught up. I wasn't able to do that, but I asked him to do it, be there for my grandkids. And I can say, by Allah, he's been there for them. He's there when they go to sleep, he's there when they wake up in the morning. And I'm thankful for that every day. And I'll continue to try to, you know, strive to help whatever young man or young girl, you know, better her life so that they don't have to end up in the system like I ended up for 28 years of my life, you know. But like I said, it was by my own hands, and I'm thankful today to be able to give back and try to save lives instead of take them like I thought it was okay when I was messed up in society.
And what his vision is for the Muslim community and moving this work forward.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah bil alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing, a great opportunity to be here today with all of you, the community here. In fact, when I first came home, this was the first mosque that I came to for Fajr. So it's definitely a feeling of barakat and blessings. And myself not being originally from the Bay Area, being from Los Angeles, You know, it was some stuff going on out there in the 80s. And during that period of time, the law enforcement has some serious conspiracies going on to really end our lives out there. And in fact, they would ride around in our neighborhoods, the sheriff, the LA County Sheriff's Department, with red and blue bandanas in their trunk. In some cases, they would drop us off in enemy territories, you know, and things like that. They used to get plane cars and
we're gonna go with Brother Yusef Wiley next on the mic, and he is a brother who's come into the community over the last couple years and really done some transformative work, and we want him to talk about his story.
From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be here. And I feel that one of the things I want to first point out in regards to this, because again, today is also the day that we commemorate or acknowledge the martyrdom of Malcolm X, or Malik al-Haj Shabazz. Conversion in the prison system. I wanted to speak specifically to that because myself, being a convert to Islam, I think it's important that we understand that most of the people that you see, especially and particularly African American brothers that are going inside the prison system or the jails, are converting to Islam right there. A lot of times when they were here, they were not Muslim, just like myself. So prior to me going into the prison system, I was not a Muslim. I was a gang member. So a lot of the things that are said here is very, I mean, this is all new to me. So just like myself, other individuals that were out in society and living that lifestyle in the street,